Welcome everybody to Excel Still More. John Pontier, Greg Harris, here once again to talk about the reforms of Household of Faith, Fellowship of Churches, and why we do what we do, for whom we serve, our Lord Jesus Christ.
Amen.
And last time we were talking, Greg, we were discussing exemplary and leadership, the example that a person makes in the body, being what is the more influential as opposed to authoritarian in nature. But we didn't talk about like the elder-led version of a church polity versus congregational-led, and kind of why would you use that model, choose that model for a household of faith?
Well, there are a lot of different models of church polity that have come down to us from the past.
Yeah, a couple thousand years of practice.
Yeah, yes, exactly. And I'm strongly committed to the idea that it's the Bible that should be our guide. It's our only rule of faith and practice.
You're such a radical.
Well, church tradition tends to always run in the direction of somehow making it a virtue to disregard what the Bible actually says. You can count on it. A really established long-term church tradition is probably at odds with what the Bible actually teaches.
Interesting.
Just as the Jewish community of Jesus' day was using the idea of korban, that if you give something or dedicate your money to God, you no longer have any responsibility to take care of your parents in their old age and to honor your father and mother. And Jesus rebuked them, saying, "You have used your tradition to set aside the scriptures." Well, we always do that. That's what church tradition is, okay? It is that tendency. And so what you see in the New Testament is the elders would be put into place after the church had been planted, and not before. Okay, you see the apostles coming to a community and proclaiming the gospel in such a way as to attract men, householders, to the new church, and then to teach them enough to allow them to begin loving one another with a pure heart, being zealous in their good works, not just toward one another, but toward the community around them. And over a period of time, often this number of months or a year, the apostles would return to that location and see who had come to this place where the church itself recognizes them as those who are elders and deacons. And then they're set into place by an ordination service. You see them laying hands on them and fasting and praying for them. And so these examples, we don't want to read too much into it, but the point is, these are ordinary men. They're coming not from seminary training. And I'm not opposed to seminary. I believe it's a tremendously valuable thing. But not everybody can afford in time or money to go to seminary. Mm-hmm. And so the church runs on regular. It runs on men who are ordinary men, loving God, loving their wives, loving their kids, and raising their families, and being a Christian ambassador in their own home. These men, properly discipled and included in the church life, can carry the responsibilities as a team with other men. Mm-hmm. Now, in addition to that, you have multiple examples of what it looks like to be a mature Christian man, and not just the professional types, and not just the tradesmen, and not just the poets, and not just the theologians. You get them all. You get a little of all that. And the result is that everybody in the church has somebody a lot like them who's on the elder team, and that they can look to as an example of what it looks like to be a mature man of God. So the question always comes up, which I'm sure you'll ask, well, what about the pastor or the lead guy or that type of thing? So go ahead and ask that question.
Well, that sounds like a lead-in if I ever heard one. Yeah, so at Household we are elder-led, and our polity is not congregational. And we have what I think the term we've used in the past is first among equals is the idea.
That comes out of the book on eldership, and I'm drawing a blank on the brother's name, but it's a very popular book on the subject of eldership. The first among equals probably doesn't capture the biblical idea as well as I think I would. What I would prefer to think of it as is that a man's gifts are going to make a place for him. And when you have somebody who, as Paul acknowledges, you have those who labor in teaching, a teaching elder, if we can use that term, is going to, by the very nature of the fact that he's handling the scriptures more to a greater depth and a greater amount of time than the other elders, he's going to have more influence. Even on the decisions of the elder team, he's going to be bringing the scriptures to bear on whatever the issue is. And so his opinions and his point of view are going to often be out of proportion to the other men. And so there has to be a mutual deferring to one another in love, a humility that says, I have this role to play, but I only have one vote. Okay? When a decision is being made, every elder has one vote. And the teaching elder may be able to sway the way other elders use their vote, but he doesn't have more than just one vote. So he's not able to be a tyrant. He's not able to lord it over the congregation or the elder team. But there are going to be gifted men. And those men, rather than seeing them as a substitute for the others, he should be viewed, and he should view himself as a supplement to the others. That he equips and encourages and strengthens the others, so that the whole team is getting stronger in the Word and stronger in the Spirit and more competent in handling the counseling responsibilities of an elder or a deacon. And so there is no lead pastor or senior pastor in our model, but there are teaching elders who often have a higher level of influence on the leadership of the church than those who are not teaching in that way.
So, harking back to a comment you made earlier about the elders rising up over time.
Mm-hmm.
So, is there a number of elders that a body?
On a practical level,
Yeah.
I think 3 is a good number.
Very Trinitarian of you.
Well, yeah, but the idea is it breaks the lock on voting. It's a 2-to-1 vote every time, or all 3 unanimous, or the point is that you don't want a situation in which 2 men or 4 men are at loggerheads with one another and nothing can get done in the church because they can't agree on which way to go. So I think ideally 3, and then I'd like to see at least 2 deacons for every 1 elder. And those deacons should see themselves as being charged with running defense, not in the sense of isolating the elders from the congregation, but from keeping the elders from getting drawn into things that would distract them from being consistently in the Word and in prayer and doing the work that they're specifically called to as elders. And so the deacons are going to be like the ears and the eyes, like a good wife would be to her husband, of what's going on with the rest of the family. You know, who needs some time with you, and how can we make that happen? I've said before in one of our podcasts that without getting weird, The elders as a team corporately are like a head of the household, the corporate husband in this household of faith, and the deacon team is like a corporate wife in relationship to how they relate to the elders. And then the congregation is the rest of the family. I don't want to use the word they're all children, because there can be very mature, elderly members in the church. But the point is they're not elders and they're not deacons, but they're in this other category. And I don't like the word lay person either, because that makes it sound like you just lay around. So
Yeah, that's not the case.
we want the congregation to be like a good, strong family, where everybody's growing up, even to the point where they begin to have that sanctified discontent that says, I would like to be a part of a new church plant. I would like to be an elder or be a deacon in a new church plant. I don't want to have to wait for some of these guys to move away or die before I can get to serve in these capacities. So what we do is we reproduce congregations. And in doing so, anyone who aspires, as Paul says, to the work of an elder, it's a noble work that he desires to do, but he has to have the qualifications. The biblical qualifications are that he manages his own household well, that he's got the respect of the community, that he basically is a mature man. He's sound doctrine in action, and there's nothing that would disqualify him from serving. And with that kind of an approach, you can have a steady stream of competent men who don't have to have extraordinary gifts, because there's a group of them. And if one or two of them have some more extraordinary gifts in the area of teaching and Bible doctrine, now you've got the safety of that the team itself is not going to go off the rails, because there's that anchor of the historical, grammatical interpretation of the scriptures, yes, holding us like an anchor in the right place.
Well, Greg, I had another question, and that is, if a man does become an elder or a deacon in a household of faith, is it like, okay, you're a deacon and an elder for life now, and this is part until you die?
I would say no to that. That an elder or a deacon serves at the bidding of the team, and so if we know one another, we should notice whether somebody needs to take a break or has other pressing issues that they'd like to be released for a season. So you
challenges
challenges with kids, challenges with your marriage, challenges with your finances. You can just say, hey, I believe I should take a little break here, step off the elder team and not have those responsibilities. Doesn't mean that you suddenly have a drop in maturity. Mm-hmm. You just simply are no longer having to attend the elders' meetings, and you're not going to be given as responsibilities as you would. The same with deacons. This should not be viewed as some kind of punishment. You can have a formal policy that everyone takes a break on a routine basis, whether they feel like they need it or not. Mm-hmm. But usually, if everything's running smoothly and everybody's enjoying what they're doing, I don't see any necessity of having people have to take a break, because it can disrupt the flow and the continuity of the team in its role.
Well, in our expressions or experience so far, I think where I've come to is I ask at least once a year if the various players want to continue mm-hmm. in that role. Yeah. Because there was a season where I was asking on a frequent basis, and the answer was always no, I want to continue to serve. And so I stopped asking that question, and then a window of time went by, and we ended up having trouble, because if I continued to ask the question, like even once a year, that we individuals may not have burned out or right. Had because of other things that were happening, right. and yeah. didn't say anything. And
you always want to have a sense that you're doing this because you want to do it. It's important. It says a man aspires to serve in this way. Mm-hmm. If a man doesn't want to, you don't try to recruit him or draft him, because the idea that the church needs you, you have to do this whether you feel ready or not. A lot of men have been really harmed by that. And a lot of men have been prematurely recruited into elder or deacon roles because the church is desperately in need. But their need does not create your call, okay?
No.
Because if you neglect your wife and children and your livelihood for a period trying to do the church's work, there's a point in the future where you may actually be disqualified when you would have been coming into your season and really be able to be productive as an elder or deacon. You're asked to leave because your wife's bitter and your children are unruly and your finances are in jeopardy. Yeah, so it's important to honor these principles and not just once in a while, but on a routine basis.
Yeah. Well, thank you for taking time again to discuss one of many topics that we're going to be exploring. Thank you again for coming and listening. My prayer is that the things that Greg and I discuss are something that will be helpful to you in either your current context, or maybe the Lord's calling you to a new one, and you're exploring how that might look in the future. So I look forward to talking with you again. God bless.
Good night.